Sometimes what you don't see is more dangerous than what you do. The people clapping for you may secretly curse you. The ones smiling at your progress may be plotting your downfall. But here's the good news. You serve a God who never sleeps. He sees it all, and when the time is right, He will expose every false presence and remove every hidden enemy without you having to lift a finger. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just a message, it's a divine revelation. Number 1, God sees what you cannot. There are moments in life when everything looks fine on the surface. People smile at you, they offer you words of support, they stand beside you in public, yet something in your spirit doesn't sit right. It's not paranoia, it's not insecurity, it's discernment. A quiet alarm that only your soul can hear. That alarm? It's often the whisper of God telling you that what you're looking at isn't the full picture. God sees the motives that no one admits. He reads intentions long before they turn into actions. While you are judging someone's presence based on their tone, their kindness, or their proximity, God is looking past the mask, straight into the hidden parts of their heart. He sees the agendas behind the applause. He hears the jealousy behind the compliments. He discerns the manipulation beneath the surface of so-called love. You may be in a room full of friends and still feel something is off. That's not just your imagination. That's spiritual awareness that God planted within you for your protection. He gives you the ability to sense when someone's presence is not pure. But even beyond what you feel, God is already 10 steps ahead. He doesn't just see what people are doing. He knows why they're doing it. He sees the conversations they had about you in secret. He sees the plans they made while pretending to support you. He sees the thoughts they buried deep, hoping no one would ever uncover them. And while you wrestle with confusion, trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, God is already separating truth from lies. He allows things to look quiet on the outside because He's testing the heart, not the appearance. Just because someone hasn't done something outwardly wrong doesn't mean they're right for your journey. God doesn't wait for destruction to act. He intervenes before the damage is done. That's why some friendships slowly fade, some doors unexpectedly close, and some people suddenly change because God saw what you couldn't. Number 2, delay is not denial, it's divine setup. There's something about waiting that tests not just your patience, but your faith. You pray for clarity, you ask for breakthrough, and when nothing changes, when heaven feels quiet, you start to wonder if God heard you at all. The silence becomes heavy. The delay becomes discouraging. And in that space between the prayer and the answer, it's easy to confuse stillness with absence and delay with denial. But what you don't realize is that God is not ignoring your request. He's preparing the foundation. God doesn't operate on impulse. He operates with intention. Every second He waits is a second He's orchestrating. While you're staring at the closed door, God is building the next one, piece by piece, behind the scenes. He's aligning the right people, adjusting the timing, creating conditions where your growth, your character, and your protection will meet perfectly. Because to Him, the process matters more than your preference. He's not just thinking about what you want now, He's securing what you'll need 5 years from now. What you see as a delay is actually the delay of destruction, a divine strategy to shield you from something that looked like a blessing but would have broken you. Sometimes you're not waiting for the promise. The promise is waiting for you to heal, to mature, to recognize the counterfeit so you won't settle, to stop idolizing outcomes and start trusting the one who controls them. So God slows things down, not to punish you, but to position you, because premature blessings become heavy burdens, and what looks like a pause is actually precision. If you moved forward too soon, you'd walk into a war you weren't trained to fight. If he said yes too early, you'd take credit for something you weren't ready to carry. The delay isn't rejection, it's refinement. In this waiting season, God is not just answering your prayer, He's answering your growth. He's watching how you respond when the answer doesn't come fast. Do you still believe? Do you still worship? Or do you trade your faith for frustration? Because He's not building just outcomes, He's building endurance. And when the time is right, when you've been tested, trusted, and tempered, what felt like delay will be revealed as divine setup. Number 3, you are being protected behind the scenes. There are battles you never saw, decisions you never had to make, and dangers you were never even aware of because God handled them before they ever reached your doorstep. You may think that divine protection always comes with dramatic signs or loud interventions, but more often it comes quietly, invisibly, hidden beneath the ordinary moments of your life. You were late to a meeting and you called it bad timing, not knowing that God delayed you to spare you from something destructive. A relationship ended suddenly, and you grieved it like a loss, not realizing that its continuation would have quietly sabotaged your peace. Sometimes you mourn what God removed, only to discover later that it was His mercy in disguise. God does not need your awareness to be your defender. While you focus on goals and plans, God watches the terrain around you, the motives of people, the unseen traps, the whispers in rooms you'll never enter. He listens to the conversations that happen behind your back. He sees the envy that's disguised as praise. He watches how some only clap when you're struggling and go silent when you rise. You may not notice it, but He does. And without ever needing to explain Himself, He begins to move things. A connection fades, a deal doesn't go through, a person slowly distances themselves from your circle. What feels like rejection is actually a rerouting. What feels like confusion is actually divine clarity unfolding over time. You weren't meant to fight every battle. Some are handled in the shadows by the one who promised to never leave you. The accidents that never happened, the betrayal that was exposed just in time, the overwhelming burden you suddenly felt lifted. These weren't coincidences. These were interventions, crafted in heaven, shaped by grace, and delivered to you through delays, redirections, and divine blockages. The closed doors were not just moments of disappointment. They were shields, barriers put in place to guard your mind, your purpose, your future. But because it all happens in silence, you often question whether God is even moving. You look for signs in people, in events, in timing, hoping for confirmation that you're safe, that you're seen. Yet the truest form of protection rarely announces itself. It doesn't ask for recognition. It just removes what could have ruined you. It repositions you before harm could reach you. It lets people reveal their true colors before you give them your trust. And all of this, God does without requiring a thank you or demanding your understanding. He protects you, not just because you asked, but because He loves you more deeply than you comprehend. Number 4, spiritual warfare is real, but victory is promised. There are moments in life when the weight pressing on your soul can't be explained by circumstances alone. The heaviness feels invisible, yet unshakable, like something is battling you from the inside out. Your thoughts become crowded. Your peace feels disrupted. People around you don't change, but your spirit senses that something is off. That is not imagination. That is not anxiety. That is the reality of spiritual warfare, a conflict that doesn't play out in flesh and blood, but in realms unseen. You're not just battling emotions or confusion. You're fighting forces that are ancient, strategic, and determined to derail your purpose. Spiritual warfare doesn't always announce itself with chaos. Sometimes it shows up as distraction, pulling you away from prayer, keeping you busy with things that drain you but never fulfill you. Other times, it disguises itself as shame, whispering that you are not worthy, not loved, not enough. It thrives in silence, it feeds on your isolation, and its greatest tactic is convincing you that the fight is natural when it's actually spiritual, that you're just tired when you're actually under attack, that you're just distant from people when you're being targeted to disconnect from your source. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you outright. He only needs to exhaust you until you give up what was always meant to be yours. But even in the thick of that invisible war, you are not abandoned. You are not helpless. You are not fighting alone. The promise of God isn't just survival, it's victory. And that promise doesn't waver based on how you feel or how long the battle lasts. God equips you with armor that cannot be seen, truth to guard your mind, righteousness to protect your heart, peace to guide your steps, faith to block the arrows that come without warning. He doesn't remove you from the battlefield. He empowers you to walk through it with authority. The war might be spiritual, but the outcome is certain, because the power behind you is greater than what's coming against you. Still, victory isn't always immediate, and it doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it looks like standing when you feel like falling. Sometimes it means praying when your voice is barely a whisper. Other times it means choosing to forgive when bitterness feels justified. The signs of winning in the spiritual realm are not always visible in the natural, but they are real. Every time you refuse to bow to fear, every time you return to prayer after doubt tried to silence you, every time you speak life while death whispers to your mind, you are advancing. You are not losing just because you feel weary. You are not defeated just because it's hard. In fact, the intensity of the battle is often the evidence of your purpose. The enemy does not waste his energy on what is not a threat. You are being targeted because you are valuable. You are being attacked because your calling carries weight. Number 5, God will use the evil for your elevation. There is a mystery in how God works, a divine paradox that turns pain into purpose, betrayal into blessing, and opposition into opportunity. What the enemy meant to destroy you, God can reroute to develop you. What looked like your breaking point becomes your turning point. Evil does not get the final word. It becomes raw material in the hands of the Almighty. And though it doesn't feel redemptive when you're walking through it, there is a promise that every injustice, every lie spoken against you, every hidden attack, every rejection will not go to waste. Heaven does not overlook your wounds. It transforms them into weapons. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the very reason you grow. They reveal your boundaries. They push you closer to God. They show you who you are not, so you can finally understand who you are. And while their intention was to cause confusion, God's plan was to give you clarity. He lets the evil play out long enough for it to expose itself. Not because he agrees with it, but because he's writing a story that no enemy can erase. In that story, the same hands that tried to silence you become the reason your voice becomes louder. The same eyes that rolled with doubt become witnesses to your rise. And the same pit you were thrown into becomes the platform you never asked for, but were always meant to stand on. God has never needed perfect conditions to bless someone. He doesn't wait until everyone is for you. In fact, he often blesses you right in the presence of those who wanted you broken. He anoints you while the doubters still whisper. He promotes you while your name is still being disrespected in rooms you'll never enter. Because his glory is revealed most powerfully when the odds are against you. That's why he allows certain things to happen. Not because he caused them, but because he can conquer them. He'll use the betrayal to shift your circle. He'll use the delay to strengthen your endurance. He'll use the disappointment to expand your vision. And before long, you begin to realize that the evil that came to end you was only allowed to elevate you. There is no attack so dark that God cannot extract light from it. There is no plot so twisted that he cannot rewrite it into victory. The enemy does not have creative power. He only corrupts. But God takes what has been corrupted and restores it to purpose. And in doing so, He lifts you to places you couldn't have climbed on your own. The storm they sent to drown you becomes the wind beneath your wings. The hate they threw at you becomes the soil where your roots grow deeper. The rumors, the sabotage, the silence, they all become evidence not of your downfall, but of your rising. Because when God is your author, even evil becomes part of the elevation. Number 6. The exposure is your breakthrough. There comes a moment when God decides that enough is enough. What was hidden in the dark is pulled into the light. Not to embarrass you, not to shame others, but to deliver you. Because what stays hidden often continues to have power. But the moment of exposure is the moment of divine intervention. It's when God peels back the layers of deception, double lives, false loyalty, and spiritual manipulation to show you what you could not or would not see on your own. And that moment, while painful and disorienting, is not the end of you. It is the beginning of your freedom, the beginning of your rise, the beginning of a life not built on illusions, but on truth. Exposure doesn't come to destroy what's real. It comes to remove what's fake. It doesn't come to ruin your relationships. It comes to reveal who was really with you. It doesn't come to break you down. It comes to break off everything that's been holding you back. For too long, you've questioned your instincts, doubted your discernment, second-guessed your worth based on how others treated you. But when God exposes the truth, it validates what your spirit already knew. It confirms the discomfort you felt around certain people. It clarifies why certain opportunities never sat right in your soul. It explains the weight you couldn't name but carried every day. When things are exposed, they lose their grip. The lies that once manipulated your emotions can no longer control your direction. The people who wore masks around you can no longer influence your mind. The confusion that clouded your vision begins to lift, and as painful as it is to face, the truth comes with healing. The exposure becomes the very door God uses to usher you into a new season, not because He's cruel, but because He refuses to let you stay bound to what was never real. And even though your heart may ache from what's uncovered, your soul exhales. Because now you know. Now you're awake. Now you can begin again, without the shadows, without the weight, without the lies. Exposure may feel like loss, but it is actually gain. It is the answer to the prayer you prayed for protection, for clarity, for truth. God answers with revelation. He answers by shaking what was built on false ground. He removes what looked stable but was rotting underneath. And though everything may shift in an instant, what remains afterward is real. What remains is purified. What remains is ready. Exposure is not the collapse of your life. It's the collapse of illusions that were blocking your life from truly beginning. So if you've been feeling like things are falling apart, like the truth is surfacing faster than you can handle, don't fear the exposure. Embrace it. This isn't chaos. This is clarity. This is God doing what only He can do, protecting you through revelation, purifying your path by removing what no longer belongs, and elevating you by cutting off what was quietly holding you back. You didn't lose. You were liberated, and now that you see clearly, walk boldly. Don't go back to the places, the people, or the patterns God exposed. Your breakthrough begins where your comfort zone ends, and what God just removed. Don't reach for it again. Stand firm, stay clean, and step into your next chapter, fully awake, fully aligned, and fully free.